Hi, this is your girl Annette, Miss Delaware Classic Universe, here with another queen who is going to share what she does, why she does it, how it's important, and how you can connect and support her. Now, the Wear Your Crown Empowerment Speaker Series is intended to inspire women and girls into purpose. How? By hearing the stories of these phenomenal women and what they're doing, how you can support, in hopes of inspiring women and girls into their purpose or into action. Today, we have a phenomenal queen. Now, if you are not following her on Instagram to see her phenomenal stories as she markets not only herself and what she's doing, but other people's businesses as well, you want to stay tuned for this. Okay. Now, let me make sure I pronounce this queen's name correctly because I have messed it up on a number of occasions. So Nyemade
Biowu,
Biowu.
yes. Yep, Nyemade Biowu. You did
Yes,
it. Yeah.
please introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name, as she mentioned, is Nyemade Biowu. Or if you're online, I'm that African butterfly across all social platforms. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to just tell a little bit about me. I do a lot of interviews, so I'm used to being on the other side where I'm asking all the questions and getting people to tell me their stuff. So it's nice once in a while to be on the side of telling my tale.
So, in case you missed that, she hosts events and activities. So, if you need a phenomenal host to come in and then make sure that your audience is engaged and connected professionally to what's happening, you want to be sure to check her out. So, what is it that you do?
Oh, sometimes I feel like the answer to that is what is it that I don't do? I do a lot of things, which is great, and I've narrowed it down. But to just, sort of tell you a little bit about my tale, if you saw the flyer that we used to promote this has one of my favorite quotes, which is if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude about it by Maya Angelou. And I truly, truly live by those words. I feel that a lot of times people feel like they're really stuck in some things, and you're really just as stuck as you want to be, whether that's literally physically or mentally, because there are life circumstances where you are stuck on certain life paths, like you have been dealt that card and you have to deal with it. But what you don't have to do is be stuck in it mentally. Like you can change your way of thinking about it. So um let me tell you in the beginning. So if we go back, right around the time I turned 30, and I mean, I'm sure that's not surprising to anyone. You kind of reach those milestones in your life, those birthdays where you're kind of reflecting and thinking about things. And I really was at a time where I just felt like I didn't feel fulfilled in what I was doing. I didn't feel like I was living my purpose. I'd worked for the bank. I worked for Bank of America. I had been there for 10 years at that time. And even though I loved what I was doing within the bank, because I don't really care about banking, but a lot of it I was able and fortunate to do learning and development. So, like, if we had new associates, I'd put together the curriculum for onboarding. If we had a new product, if we wanted to do process improvement, they would tap on me no matter what department I was in, and I would be able to help put that together. And I love that. And I realized that I wanted to do more of that, but I wanted to do more of that in an area that I enjoyed, on things that I enjoyed. I have areas that I volunteer with and do different things with, like mental health is really important to me. Um, Anything in related to like racial equality or equity, gender equality, immigrations. And that's the other thing. I'm a little bit of a bleeding heart. Like I want to take up every cause, but you cannot do that. You sometimes have to like narrow it down. So I told myself, like, what are 5 things I am most passionate about? And how can I get involved in a way where I feel like I'm living my purpose, which is having an impact in those things. I've sort of narrowed it down under just the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion, because things like gender is included under that, things like immigration is included under that, body positivity is included under that, mental health is included under that. So those are really, my main areas of focus. So when I thought about that, I was like, well, how do I want to get involved with that? Something that I feel like people will frequently do, and it's definitely something that I've done, is that I tend to underplay my natural gifts and talents. It's almost like because it's not a struggle for me, I dismiss it as a gift and talent that I should be, you know, capitalizing on or really doubling down on. And for me, that's been communications. I've just always had a gift of communicating with people in a way that it took me a while to realize that it was a gift because it was so natural. Like it took me to realize that not anybody can talk to a stranger and get their life story out of them in a few minutes, and not everybody can make any topic interesting, or
Mm,
not anybody has the ability to take information from one person, put it in their mind, and spit it out to a group of people in a way that they are able to understand and digest. And because it's always been kind of easy for me, I didn't realize like what a talent that was. But once I realized that it is a talent, and more so than that, that if I put in extra work to make that talent even better, then it's really something that I could help me live in my purpose. Because obviously I was given that God-given talent for a reason. And here I am just sitting on it, or talking to people about their overdraft fees when I could be breathing life into them about body positivity or loving themselves and having self-confidence. So um, just taking that and realizing how I wanted to take those talents and put it in a way where I am now helping other people and also making myself feel good. Like making others feel good makes me feel good.
yeah.
And that's also something that it took me like a minute to realize that that was okay. Like it's okay that I love complimenting people or making people feel good because it makes me feel good. It doesn't take away from the fact that I'm doing a good thing, you know?
Yes.
Um, so once I was like, okay, and I'm very much one of those people who I like to figure out my goal and then work backwards. Like, how am I going to get there? So I figured out some like long-term goals for myself, and then sort of was like, well, how do I go from there? Like, I am at ground zero. I know I want to be in communications. I know I've always loved production. And as much as I'm great on camera, I'll tell you right now, my dream is to be off camera. I love producing. And I've just 6 years later, and we'll get to that more, but just gotten to the point now where I'm starting to produce for other people, which I love. But knowing that I wanted to get to that step, but that I was very much in the beginning, and it's like, well, do I try to go back to school? Do I try to figure out all this stuff? We are really lucky that we live in a time of social media. Social media can be a blessing or a curse, and I decided to make it my blessing because I looked around and I'm like, well, look at all of these people who are doing all of these things, and some people are getting opportunities simply because they have followers, not necessarily because they've worked so hard at it. Um, and that's just where we are now, right? Like people say influencers, but you can be just an influencer, or you can be a person of influence, and you can make a difference. And so I decided I wanted to use that to make a difference. So I was like, well, we got to build up that following, and we have to see how we can make it happen. And I was really fortunate that around the time that I was sort of trying to map this out and what I wanted to do, I came across a quote from Cece Olisa, which um I always reference because it really was one of those like hallelujah moments of my life. Like I heard the chorus because I was doing one of her like plus size workout videos, and her phrase is, "Don't wait on your weight to live the life you want." And it was like
Mm,
I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. Like that truly was, even in that moment when I was like trying to figure out my future, when I was trying to figure out like what I love doing, what my gifts, what my talents, my blessings was, there were so many things I was like, well, when I get smaller and when I get slimmer and when I do this, and I'm like, wait, why am I continuing to hold myself back to a size? Like I'm just as funny. I'm just as smart. I communicate just as well. Like, if you have a problem taking that in because of my outwardly appearance, like that's on
that's
you.
your problem, right?
And I shouldn't hold myself back because I'm worried about how you will perceive it. Instead, what I should do, and it's something that I live by, is let my vibe attract my tribe. Like, I'm not chasing anyone. I'm not convincing anyone. We live in a huge world with millions and billions of people. I promise you, there are people who will like you for who you are, what you bring to the table, and everything that you are without you having to change yourself. If anything, the hardest thing is staying true to yourself because it's almost easier to want to bend and mold yourself to match what someone else wants.
I
It's
just
actually
had
a
this
lot.
conversation with,
Did you?
just had this conversation, just had this exact conversation. Like that, you don't have to pretend, you don't have to put on, because your tribe is going to find you. And there are people, you're like, you know what, I'm so weird. There are a lot of weird people. All you have to do is share your weirdness with whomever, and they will find you. They will connect to you and they will love you as is. You don't have to make concessions or accommodations for people who aren't ready for your level of crazy, weird, different, because I am all of those things and I love it.
Same, same. Because while you're extra for someone, you're just right for someone else. And I think a lot of times we find ourselves wanting to be these certain things. And like, listen, if you have certain things that you want out of your life and certain places that you want to be, there are certain circles that have rules. Like there just are. Like I'm not going to pretend like there aren't.
Mm.
So yeah, you may have to change. Well, you have two options. You can change to fit into that, or you can try to bust down that door and let them accept you as you are. I say do either what makes you happy, but you also don't have to do either. You can just be yourself and let yourself be with the right tribe. Like, I feel like I say it so much, but I can't say it enough. Like, there's nothing on this earth that everyone agrees with. There's
Yes.
nothing on this earth that everyone agrees with. So you are never going to find 100% of the people agreeing with anything about you ever. It's just a fact. So you can either let other people's opinions and what they say about you impact how you feel about yourself, or you can be like, okay, thanks, and then find people who do cherish that about you. You know, I like to use Beyonce as my example. I'm like, listen, not everybody likes Beyonce. And a lot of times people will have celebs who like they won't let someone talk crap about them. Like if you came up to me and was like, Beyonce is not talented, Beyonce doesn't work hard, I'd be like, you have lost your mind. You don't know what you're talking about. Like I wouldn't stand for it because I don't believe in it. So it's like, well, then why do we let people say those things about us? Like, will you think about it? Think about that book you love, that celebrity you think is great, that musician you love. Do you let other people's opinions of it change or sway how you feel about it? Not usually. So why do you let them change or sway how you feel about yourself? And it's usually because you haven't taken the time to really build that confidence within yourself. But once you get there, once you're like, listen, I am the ish. Like in my life, I'm the main character of my life. I'm the Beyonce of my life every day. I'm the main character of my life every day. Main character, though, does not mean center of attention. And that's where people get it twisted. Because even in a movie with the main character, they're not always the center of attention of every scene. Sometimes you are playing the supporting role in that scene, but you are still the main character of your life. It's still about you being the truest version of yourself
Mm.
and being around people who affirm that version of you. And also, like, knowing that not everyone is perfect, right? And so you still have to have that level of accountability. And that's what I mean when I say like don't be center of attention. Like don't think that everybody has to cater to you or that you are always right. There's a fine line between like believing in yourself and being confident in yourself, and then also trying to bulldoze people with that. Like someone can think something is negative about you, and it's on you whether you accept that or not, but it's also on you whether you acknowledge that and say, I'm not working on it right now.
Right.
That's sometimes is a thing too. Like I don't have to be defensive. Like if someone tells me something, like I don't have to be defensive about it because I know you. There's very few things you can tell me about myself that I don't already know. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with you that it's a negative. Maybe I think like you said, and I like I'm weird and I am quirky and I'm all these things. And if I didn't like it, then sure, it's something I could work on. But if I
Right.
love it, then you can work on walking away from me while I keep doing what I want to do.
That
Like
part.
that's how I view it. But there's also things that I'm like, I know this isn't great and I know I need to work on this, but I'm not going to let it take away from who I am. And also recognizing that, like, just because you don't think it's great doesn't
Mm.
mean that I don't think it's great. And a really great, like, surface level of this is like fashion. How many times do you hear people critique other people's fashion as like right or wrong? It is all opinion based. There unless you are trying to fit a specific, like I was saying with life things, unless you're trying to to fit a specific goal. Like, I want to look like a grunge star, but you are wearing florals. Okay, then I'm gonna say like maybe you're not working. Like that doesn't quite work. But
Right.
if it's just a matter of I'm wearing this and I think I look good, someone else telling you they don't look good, well, that's their opinion. Like truly, that is just their opinion. And a lot of people think like, oh, because I don't think that looks good, then it doesn't look good. And we hear it all the time, right? Well, if I'm a good friend, I'm going to tell them. Why though? Like why? And ask yourself that when you're talking to other people, but also when you're talking to yourself, like, why does my opinion really matter? You know, like why, if they're happy with it, even if I think they look a mess, unless like I said, they are trying to go for a look and missing it, then I'm going to tell you. Or
Mm.
if it's something that like really is like awful or detrimental to them, other than that, like, hey, if you like it, I love it. That's really how I rock through life. Like, if you like it, I love it. I'm human, so I'm going to side eye inside, like, what is she wearing? But, you know, I'm going to be happy for you if you are happy. That is how that's how I roll.
Yes, nope, I completely agree. When in the pageant world, there are a number of things, and again, it depends on the pageant you're in. It depends on who your judges are and what they see. And sometimes, as a pageant director, what my judges say, I don't always agree with, but I selected those judges, so I
Right.
can't go back and pull what they said and be like, okay, I'm gonna override what you said because I don't agree. No, I selected them, and that's what they decide. But the good thing is you have an opportunity to look and to see what was shared so that you have an opportunity to say, yes, but I did that with intent. Like when I competed
Right.
in international, I did what is it? Um Waka Waka by Shakira.
Oh,
And I
okay.
wore
Yeah.
like combat clothes with a Namibian flag that I twirled. And I felt
Mhm.
like it tied into the theme. Like it was the
Yeah.
year that they were in Africa. It was a country that I actually lived in for a period of time. And I was like, we're going to combat. Like we're going to fight and win, get this title. But if you don't know that, you're not connecting to that. You don't see that.
Right.
And it is a pageant. So people were like, you
Yeah.
could have wore a tutu. And I'm like, but the flag would have probably lifted up the tutu. That wouldn't have been
Right.
really cute. I don't
Yeah.
want to be flashing
Yeah.
people. But, when you look at the judges and the scores and what they've decided to say, and it was like, oh, well, maybe they thought the same thing. I should have had something more on. But
Yeah.
it's like if you heard the words, if you listened, you would understand where that outfit came from. But it's a matter
Yeah.
of opinion, and I wouldn't have changed it.
Well, and I mean, that's
And
like a
I,
great example of it, right? Like the pageant world is the perfect example of it because it's like what I was saying before, like there are certain spaces where there are rules, and it's up to you how you want to enter those spaces. You can either choose to mold yourself to fit those rules to fit in, or you can
yes.
choose to ignore those rules, be yourself, and just keep pushing until they accept you as you
Or
are.
until they say
The
no, which is what they did to
until
me.
right.
Which
But
is-
you know what I mean? Like, but everybody, like, it's not a pageant. You're not always on stage. And it's
right.
like so often, like, what would people say? What would people think? Who cares? Like, especially when
But
you're adult.
it,
Like, I
it,
feel
it
like it's
doesn't even
almost
matter. At the end of the day, you are correct. Like even in the pageant world, everything that you wear is a representation of you. Like I can't go out and tell you who I am or who I believe I to be. Like I have to exude that in my clothing. So in terms of
yep.
how I present, if I am authentically presenting as myself and I am excited about what I am wearing and what I am doing, then I am already winning. I think Latoya said it
Exactly.
best. She was like, I'm not in competition with the other women. I was in
That
there
part.
fixing dresses, helping pin people up. And they were like, why are you helping the other contestants? Because I'm not in competition with them. I'm out
Right.
here to share
Exactly.
who I am, and it's being exuded through what I've decided to wear, how I decided to perform in the talent portion, and what I decide to say during the Q&A section. So
Hmm.
I'm winning either way, which is how this series was birthed in the first place.
That's and we love it because you have to wear your crown. And I said it earlier, but it's really true. Like it's almost harder to be yourself. It's almost easier to mold in. Like, we live in a society that wants you to go with the flow. They want you to follow the blueprint of life. It's why so many people, honestly, are miserable, because they get this, like, they get told this manuscript of this is what you have to do. You have to get this job and do this thing and marry this person and have these kids and do blah, blah. And then they do all the steps and then they look around and they're like, well, why aren't I happy? It's because along the way, nobody was telling you to figure out what would make you happy. They were telling you
Yes.
what you need to do to check off all those boxes, but not telling you to figure out who you are, what makes you happy, what brings you joy. And maybe some of this, like, I learned my list is like not part of that blueprint list. Like, my list is way over less, but I'm blessed that I figured that out in like my 20s. And I've been like moving along the way to figure that stuff, and had, you know, like I said, my revelation in the 30s to get to where I am now. But a lot of people unfortunately don't have people, and that's part of what,
Mhm.
you know, when we talk about what I do, it's why I make those little reels about stuff, because for me, seeing other people sort of do what I want to do or be where I am, it helps me. You know, it's great to be a trailblazer, but representation really does matter. Like, being a face out there, and even like my mental health, which is how I really started to talk about some of the things more. It was hard for me to be out there. Like, I want to be seen as this like totally together person who has my stuff, who's all good, but I struggle, and sometimes I struggle real bad, and sometimes it's awful, and it was hard being open about that. But let me tell you, the minute I was open about that, other people were like, me too. Oh my God, me too. Oh my goodness, it's so great hearing it. Oh my gosh, me out there. And like, that really is what opened me up to sharing more. If you follow me on Instagram, I know it seems like I'm so comfortable talking about my life all the time, especially if you watch my stories. But that really was an evolution of getting there. Because before, I didn't want to share anything, but I found that like the more I talk about things, it's almost like the harder it was to talk about, the more people resonated with it. Like, even
Mhm.
this week, I've barely been on my stories. I've been struggling mentally this week. I've been crying, I've been angry. And I finally yesterday was like, guys, I know I've been quiet this week, because normally if you go on my stories, there's like a bunch of little dots because I'm telling things all day. But like this week, it's been like barely anything. And I was like, to be honest, I've just really been struggling, and I didn't want to just be on here complaining. So I've been quiet. The amount of people that responded back, me too, me too. I've been dealing with it too. I've been doing that. And so that's always, it's comforting, knowing that like people are comforting me, but also knowing that I'm helping other people be seen.
Mm.
And, you know, you kind of have to figure out where you are in that. And for me, part of using like my blessing and my talent is knowing that even though it's difficult for me to say it and express it, knowing that I have the ability to say it and express it in a way that resonates with other people. So those people who are replying back to me, they're benefiting from me pushing past my uncomfortableness to share my truth so that they can feel seen and they can feel heard.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like from a serious way, and sometimes it's fun. Like, I love doing little reels where I have like little characters, and I'll take like little pop culture stuff and redo it, but be like, this is my depression, this is my anxiety, and they're talking to each other. Or like, my productivity is yelling at my depression, like, why aren't I getting anything done? My depression's laughing in my face. You know, it's like, just to kind of make it relatable, because we are all going through some of those things.
Yeah.
And so for me, like on social media, you know, she mentioned that I'm on there a lot. Like, that was really when I was making that transition into coming into my own truth, being relatable and trying to be more of what I thought I needed to see was important. And I mentioned, you know, like, I want to do more production, but it's hard, y'all. Like, it's hard breaking into this space. It's like, well, do I go back to doing training? And you want to tell people, like, I know my gifts and talents, but you don't know necessarily my gifts and talents. So how do I convince you to take a chance on me? Well,
Yes.
first, people like you if you'll work for free. So volunteer is always my suggestion. Volunteer, but you know, sometimes if you can't get a seat at the table, you build your own table. And that's what I did with my series. Like, I knew I had great series ideas. I knew I was great at talking to people and having those conversations. So before I started trying to get other people to let me interview on theirs, I started with my own, my Instagram. I started making my own Instagram live series. Once I had a few of those, then after like a year or so, I reached out to other people and was like, hey, can I host on like, this is your platform. I'd love to do interview series on yours, which also helped me grow. And like, now I'm getting to the point where I'm starting to pitch like, not me interviewing, but hey, here is a series I can show you from the past body of work that I've done, that I'm good at formulating questions and finding guests and doing all of that. I'd like to do
Mm.
that on your platform under what you do. So that's my next evolution stage. I'm excited about. But you know, it's just a matter of like knowing your talents and knowing what you bring and figuring out, you know, who you are and what you want. And something you said too, and that is that like you're not in competition with
Mm,
people. And that's a lot of it. I feel like people, in my humble opinion, people are really held back by a couple of things. One, the fear of looking bad, right? Like, how is it going to look? They don't want people to see them in the beginning stages. Y'all, when I tell you, I look at some of my YouTubes and I go, ooh, or when I look at some of my old videos, I'm like, oh my God. But I don't delete them for a reason because they were part of my journey. A lot of people also
yes.
delete their old stuff and want people to
Yes.
see them polished. Like, no, you can see me at a hot mess because you can know that had I never taken those steps to be a hot mess, I would not be where I am now.
I
And I
did the
know,
same thing with Musically because you know on TikTok they
yeah,
still have my Musicallys up there, and even though some of them they've cut off the sound because now it's not
yeah, the new
okay or
copyright
whatever.
stuff.
But you're right, like you start. There are people who are like, I started a podcast, but you know that beginning part it was crazy, so I just deleted it. Don't. There are people following you from the very beginning, and even the ones who don't, they can see your growth. You can see your growth. Leave it up
Yeah,
there. Let it grow. What they say, if you build it, it will grow, it will come.
it
That is a
will.
true statement.
And even like the stuff that I'm doing now, like, yes, I'm proud of it. Yes, I can see the growth. But I hope in 5 years, I'm like, oh my God, because that will mean I will have had more growth. Like, if I'm not looking back and being like, oh my God, then what have I been doing with my time, you know?
Yes.
So I still want like the good quality and all that stuff, but I also put it out there knowing that hopefully in a few years I do look back and think, ooh, but you need that. And so many people just won't make the first step because they don't want people to see them in that beginning stage, that ugly stage, that it's not perfect stage. Because there are a lot of haters out there. And I get it. Like there are people who will want to say something. But let me tell you something about me. There is nobody who's not doing anything that can tell me about myself. Like I really am at that stage in my life where like, what are you doing? Like it's so easy to sit behind a keyboard and judge. Like I have found that people who are actually making strides in their lives, people who are actually working either to better themselves
Don't
or
have
to
time.
create stuff or do stuff, A, like you said, they don't have time to critique it that way, or B, they have some level of understanding because they know what it is like to put themselves out there and to be critiqued. It's the people who are too afraid to put themselves out there to be critiques who have all the critiques for everybody else. To that, I say, okay,
Yes.
you keep talking, I'm going to keep doing. So goodbye. I mean, I'm
And this,
human. Sometimes it gets to me, but for the most part, I'm like, whatever.
you're right. And the same people who have no profile, no comments, no videos, like you have nothing positive to say. You're sitting in a little box, probably in your room, tapping on the keyboard, and we out here living our best life.
We
So,
are living our best
ooh,
lives. Like, you can judge me, but it's just like, I know you can't, like I said, there's not much you can tell me about myself that I don't know. So you can have your opinions, but I'm not going to let it take me too much to heart because A, I know the people who actually care about me and know about me. And something that I've really learned, really learned is how much people self project, how much everything people say about you is such a reflection of how they feel about themselves. Like it's just major. So, um, I feel like I could talk forever, but I don't want to talk your ear forever off. But like, so for me though, fast forwarding through that journey is like, that's just how I got to where I am now, which is where I do production. I do a lot of like social media stuff for other content
right.
creators. Like I said, I built the table that I wanted to sit at, and now I'm bringing others to that table, and it feels good. So I'm not trying to elbow my way into other people's table. I'm like, hey, look at this great table I built. Look at these, 15,000 followers. Look at this video I had that went viral with 3 million views. Like I can do the work, and now you can see the work. Now let me do that work for you. Like that's how I
Right.
wear my crown. That's how I own my own thing, and just having like that confidence, like I was saying before, like not being in a competition with other people. A lot of people have a false sense of confidence where their confidence really comes from feeling better than other people. But the problem with that is the minute that you don't, it's a problem. Like that's where you get that self projection of like them being insecure with you and calling you out for things. But if you are confident in yourself, it doesn't matter what other people are doing. And that
Mm.
doesn't mean you don't have insecurities. I have some insecurities. I have some things that I know that I'm not great at, but I don't feel threatened by other people because my value isn't based on other people. Like if you're great, that's great. That doesn't take away from me being great. And if I'm
Nope.
not great at something, that also doesn't take away from me being great. That's just something I need to work on, you know? And like for me, that's true confidence. And once you have that built in, plus that level of like focusing on the people who love you, focusing on the tribe that you attract. Don't keep trying to be in tribes that don't necessarily want you. Like
Look,
if
or
you
that you
are
have to alter yourself entirely too much where you don't even recognize yourself. It's
right,
the exit stage
and
left.
don't let people make you feel bad. Like if you are a glam girl and you are hanging out with a bunch of natural people, like they're gonna be like, you do too much, you're too over the top. No, you're not. You're just not with the right people. You need to go over there and be with your other glam girls who love it. If you're also like a bum girl and you just want to go out in jeans and t-shirts all the time, there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't hang with the glam girls because the glam girls are gonna make you feel bad about yourself. So go with the natural people. Like people need to just take the time to find their center of themselves, figure
Mm.
out who they are, and then like attract that. And so that's really the core of my message and all the areas that I work in, whether it's like immigration, self love, body stuff, gender stuff. It's really just a matter of like helping people feel seen, helping people know that what they're going through, they're not the only ones. And just do you boo is what I tell everybody. Do you boo? So, you know, as far as what I do on social media, like I said, I create content for myself and for others. I also do trainings I put together because I remember I said I did that with the bank. I ended up staying another 6 years after that. So with Bank of America, I was there for 16 years doing mostly learning and development. So I've transitioned that over now. I do a lot of like mental health things, leadership course, conflict resolution, diversity and equity for businesses. So you can call on me to do those for you for your business as well. And I just really try to feel like I am making an impact, which is what's most important to me and makes me feel good is spreading that on and making other people. A lot of people say like, oh, I want to give people a voice. I feel like everyone has a voice. I want to help you feel comfortable using the voice you already have.
Yes. So look, you heard it. If now if you're just tuning in to the end or you decide to like slide, don't go back. Listen to the whole thing. She was dropping gems the whole time. Great information, not only for yourself, but her links are below. So if you're like, I'm not sure what she was talking about with the reels, go and check it out. Go and check out her Facebook, go and check out her TikTok. Go through the links are below. Check out her Instagram so you can see and understand some of the work that she is doing. And it's always easy to look at some of this stuff and be like, oh, that's easy. It's not. It is not. Creating the reels, finding the story, the music, the language, and getting people to actually click all the way through is work.
You
So
really
the
have
fact
to
that they
love it.
get
You have to
through,
love it.
look, and you can see the people who have seen it. So, in terms of you being able to check or to gauge how many people have seen, if she is doing the work, she can see and track those numbers for you. So
Yeah.
if you have a business and you need someone to market your resources, your information, what it's doing, a product tester, you definitely want to check her out because she's gonna blow you up. She gonna have you
I
all.
will help. And I didn't even mention a lot of that too is I also do like consultations for business on your social media presence specifically. Like, so let's say you don't want to bring in someone to run your social media, but you just want to know like how I can make my social media better. Because I do marketing for businesses as well. So you can just hit me up for a consultation. I can put together content calendars, strategies, all of that stuff.
And guess what? Her information is below. So make sure you go through and check out all of her information. Nyemade. It was such a
Yes.
pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Please continue to keep doing what you're doing. We are all inspired by what you do, how you do it. Now, if we want to support, how do we do that?
You can find me online, www.thatafricanbutterfly. I'll tell you, I basically live on Instagram. It's the fastest and easiest way to get a hold of me and to see like my whole collective. If you want to support me, because a lot of this work is just love, right? Love work. You can cash at me at sign NYEMADE. That is my name. There's also a link on my link tree for buy me a coffee or a drink. You can do that as well. That's always appreciated.
And the information is below. You guys have a great evening. This is the 2024 Wear Your Crown Empowerment Speaker Series with Nyemade, that African butterfly. Be sure to check her out.
Bye. Thank you.